Well, you won't want to miss what's going wrong in country Victoria, because we know after the announcements today, it's not just Metro Melbourne that will feel the heat from growing restrictions. Although people have been banned for some time having visitors in their home in Melbourne, pubs and restaurants are closed. But not so in country Victoria. People will be banned from going into someone else's home, but the pubs and clubs and restaurants and cafes, bars, all of them will stay open, which makes all of these conflicting rules so much harder to get compliance. We already know some regional communities are badly impacted by this virus, with many feeling as though they've been let down by health officials, with long delays in testing results and, as I said, a lack of consistent advice. An MP who's really taken up the fight for his constituents is a member for Polwarth, Mr. Richard Riordan, who joins me now tonight from the hard-hit town of Colac. Richard, well done to you. You've really brought, I think, the nation's attention to the issues in Colac. I just can't believe, despite all of the claims that you've made and the things that you've brought to the public's attention, not much seems to be improving down there. You've sent me through a letter tonight. I'll put it up there on the screen. This is a letter that a worker from a local abattoir received from the Department of Health, allowing them to leave quarantine 7 days too early. There's the letter on the screen. What's happening in Colac?
Oh, Peter, look, this is an unmitigated disaster here in regional Victoria at the moment. We have a Premier that day after day stands up and tells everybody they're working hard, they're doing all they can. That may be true. I don't think anyone doubts that Daniel Andrews isn't putting the hours in. But we know that there's the old saying about the duck looking graceful on top and just paddling madly underneath and getting nowhere fast. And that's exactly what's happening here in regional Victoria. We're coming up to 14 days since our first diagnosis in Colac. 14 days. In that time, not one piece of correspondence has gone to the Mayor, nothing to myself as the parliamentary representative of the region. There is no communication. There is zero feedback. And yet the biggest complaints, and these complaints fit in with world's best practice that says you must get results and contact tracing underway in 48 hours. We are hearing time and time again, 10, 11 days, 9 days. People are waiting far too long. The consequence, Peter, is there for all to see. From 0 to 79 cases in 14 days. If that was extrapolated over Melbourne, we would be closing in on 33,000 active cases. And I can tell you that that report is 2 days old. I can also tell you that the real figure is actually closer to 100, which means Colac, if it was Melbourne, would be looking at 40,000 active cases. And still, no communication from DHHS, no communication from the Premier, no communication from anybody, nowhere for the local people to ring and get answers. My office has become a call centre. We are dealing with grief, anxiety, fear, and no one knows where to go, and nothing has changed, Peter. It is a disaster. And if the people of Australia want to look and see why Victoria has cases in the 700s and the rest of the country is at worst below 20, I can tell you now the Victorian government is mismanaging this almost to a criminal extent. They are refusing to take any advice or to listen to anybody.
Well, the problem you have, I'm sad to say, down your way, is it's a safe sort of Liberal territory. I mean, state and federal. This is a problem. According to Daniel Andrews, I'd say you don't really matter. Tell me the circumstances. Nearly 2,000 people went into quarantine in Colac from the period July 17 to 21. Nearly 2,000 people in a small country town. That's an enormous segment of the population. We're told that the Department of Health is refusing to pay workers their $300. That's what Daniel Andrews gets up at the last 4 or 5 days and crowed about this $300. What's the story here?
Well, I'll give you two great examples. I've got a disability worker who's done the right thing, stayed away from shifts. Colac has a large amount of disability homes. This person has done the right thing, stayed away from a vulnerable population, stayed at home for the 10 days to get their results. They've missed shifts, and the department says, the Daniel Andrews government that says it cares, has said to them, you went into isolation before the 23rd of July, we're not paying you. Everyone, 2,000 odd people in Colac have gone into isolation from between the 17th and the 21st, and the government refuses to support them. I had another young guy, an apprentice plumber. He and his partner have just built a new house. They're working hard. Once again, they've done the right thing. She works at a school. He works in a plumbing business that was working in a large site. He's done the right thing. They're not eligible. It's so wrong, Peter. And to think that the Premier keeps telling Victorians he's doing one thing and he's clearly letting people down on the other.
Look, I know Colac well, I know the area quite well, but I particularly know Colac well. The Mayor is saying that he wants the whole town locked down. He's been saying that for some time. I'm really cognizant, Richard, that you've got a lot of older people that, you know, were on farms, they've moved into town, you've got in part a vulnerable population. How much of it is a concern that you have, yes, these rules about masks and you can't have visitors in your own home, but all the pubs and restaurants and cafes, they're all open. How is that consistent?
Well, it's not consistent, Peter, because apparently if you listen to the Premier today, his medical advice says you won't catch coronavirus going to a restaurant or a cafe in Colac, but you will if you go in Melbourne. Now, go figure that one. But having said that, Peter, everyone in Colac is working so well together as a town that most of these businesses are closed anyway because literally everyone is staying at home. The problem we have in the government's response today, Peter, is our state schools. We are one of the most socio-economically disadvantaged rural communities. We have kids that need that education. We've got a situation where 80% of them are staying away, and Daniel Andrews will not let those schools commence remote learning. It's an outrage.
Well, so let me
the three Catholic schools have, and they won't let the state.
So let me just make sure people can follow this at home. In Melbourne, everybody other than very senior students are on remote learning, so the children are at home. In country Victoria, parents are required to send their children to school. If not, you know, they're clocking up penalties. But you're saying in your town, most parents are scared. They've got the kids at home, but they're not able to teach them.
That's exactly right. They're being treated as absentees. It's absolutely crazy. And the problem is, Peter, is the simple solution to regional Victoria is local solutions for local problems in local regions. Daniel Andrews will not have a bar of it. He wants to put his big Spring Street glove over the top of country people. He's not listening to the Mayor. He's not listening to me. He's not listening to community leaders. He's not listening to the business community. And as a result, we are getting a really raw deal here in country Victoria.
Well, yes, you are. I'll stay across at Richard Riordan, as I know you will too. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Peter.